in production, and he has the pleasure to be the first to introduce the first panel on renewable hydrogen production. Nikos, my pleasure.
Thank you, Mirella, and a warm welcome to all hydrogen friends. Very nice to see so many of you. Sorry, so many people are standing. Right, so we have now the first panel that will be discussing about renewable hydrogen production to REPOWER EU. What are the challenges that this sector faces to be able to meet the REPOWER EU targets? My name is Nikos Lymperopoulos. I'm one of the project officers following hydrogen production projects. So we have a very solid EU hydrogen strategy there. And there are some support schemes to help implement this strategy. We have the Fit for 55 package, we have the REPOWER EU plan and the Hydrogen Bank that was launched that year. We have 2 delegated acts on renewable hydrogen and renewable fuels of non-biological origin, and we have 4 tranches of IPCEIs. And of course, in terms of supporting research, we have the Clean Hydrogen Partnership. And there are some very ambitious targets. We have to install at least 6 gigawatts of renewable hydrogen electrolyzers by the end of next month, by 2024, and 40 gigawatts by 2030 in the EU, and then produce these 10 million tons of renewable hydrogen and import another 10 by 2030. And here's the challenge. So I'm using this graph from the recent IEA Global Hydrogen Review. And you can see how the total installed electrolyzer capacity globally has been increasing. Good news, going from 2023 to 2024, the global installed capacity of electrolyzers increased from 1.4 gigawatt to more than 5 gigawatts. Super. But then the next bar shows the breakdown by region of the world. So the red is China, 4 gigawatt of electrolyzers, really impressive. And at the bottom, the light blue is Europe. And there we have installed 700 megawatt, so an order of magnitude less than what the target is. And actually, if you look at the details, 43 megawatt of this comes from our projects, which is all innovative, first-of-a-kind electrolyzers. And we actually have signed grants for another 400 megawatts for demonstrating large electrolyzers and also the hydrogen valleys. So already the JU is contributing a bit in meeting targets. How do we do this? These are the various routes for hydrogen production, and if you look at the number of projects that we have supported, you can see that we only support renewable hydrogen production technologies. 79 projects, almost 300 million euro. The majority of our support goes to electrolyzers, and this panel will be talking about electrolyzers, but we do support other low TRL routes based on biomass or water splitting, low temperature or high temperature. But electrolysis is the major one. We are also keeping an eye on this fashionable term, natural hydrogen. There will be a topic on natural hydrogen in our next call in January. So we have supported those 61 projects, 232 million on the left-hand side, supporting all different types of electrolyzers, PEM, solid oxide, alkaline, an ion exchange, and to the right-hand side, a very interesting distribution of our funding to industry, a third of the money, a quarter of the money going to SMEs, and 40% to universities and researchers, which is, I think, a very fair deal. I'm using this slide that SINTEF provided to me, which is really a dream scenario we have seen for some technologies. This is for the case of PEM electrolyzers. So SINTEF, in collaboration with a nucleus of partners that included ITM Power, over 14 years, they have started developing materials, components, prototype stacks, and eventually went all the way up to the 10 megawatt refine project shown there. This is our project, so we prove that this thing works, and then the market or other frameworks can take it to the 100 megawatt refine 2 project. So we are happy to demonstrate the 10 megawatt and then let the mature bird fly off the nest. And this is what we have been doing over the last 12 years. These are our large demonstration projects. With blue, it's PEM electrolyzers, and orange is alkaline. And over 12 years, we went from 150 kilowatts on the left all the way up to 30 megawatts. So 200 times increase, 100 times reduction in the support we provide per installed megawatt, showing economies of scale, also commitment of partners, and hopefully a drop in capex, which didn't happen last year. Capex increased, I hope perhaps you know. So all the way up to the 10 megawatt refine, all these have been installed, operated, and are still operating after the end of our project and support, which is fantastic. Also till 2017, we were supporting the largest globally PEM electrolyzer projects. Not only were the largest, but they also included, by 2017, components made in the EU. You know, those were the dream years. It was all EU made. Now the market has evolved, it's different, it's global. You can see components made outside the EU in the large electrolyzer projects. Where Europe is also a leader is offshore hydrogen production. So we have 2 projects, Oyster, this is near shore, actually, alkaline electrolyzer, 3 megawatt, and Project Hope, this is actually going 1 kilometer offshore with a PEM electrolyzer. Another success story is the support and the technology developed under the high temperature electrolyzers. Again, similar trend, going from 150 kilowatt all the way to 2.4 megawatt plant commissioned in Neste. If we zoom in a little bit at performance indicators, we can see that in terms of reaching our KPIs, our best-in-class projects have been reaching those KPIs, both for low temperature and high temperature. But if we look at the average picture of the projects that report to us, so alkaline, PEM, solid oxide, and ion exchange, you can see that in particular for alkaline, the broken orange line at the top is well above the solid line that represents the KPI target in terms of energy consumption. So we are not there yet. We still need to do research to be able to reduce those energy consumptions. And this is the latest research topics that we are currently supporting. So we still need improvements in materials, components, balance of plant is proving to be an important issue. Control strategies, things like the digital twin. We have gone offshore with standard electrolyzers, but we're also supporting seawater electrolysis, direct seawater electrolysis. A lot of interest, a lot of research being done in Europe. We were surprised receiving 25 proposals on this topic. Then, removing PFAS, very important. Recycling of electrolyzer materials. Improving the direct coupling of renewables with electrolysis. And the latest trend word is competitiveness, EU competitiveness. How can we design good in performance electrolyzers, but also safe in design electrolyzers? And to address these issues and other issues of concern to the industry, we have a very distinguished panel that I would like to invite on stage, and also the co-moderator, Miss Julie Mougin from CEA, to come on stage, please, Julie. And in terms of me, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Nikos. So it's my pleasure to invite now on stage our panelists, which represent various electrolyzer manufacturers in Europe, and that will give an interesting discussion on our research, innovation, and challenges we have on electrolysis. So I would like to give you the floor to each of you to introduce yourself and your company in a few words before diving more into the questions that we have.
Good morning, thank you. My name is Jean-Baptiste. I'm the CEO of McPhy. McPhy is one of the largest European electrolyzer manufacturers. We are specialized in pressurized alkaline technology, and we have operation in France, Germany, and Italy. We have been in business for more than 15 years.
Good morning, I'm Raphaël Tilot. I'm the CEO of John Cockerill Hydrogen. We are an electrolyzer manufacturer with factories in Europe, in China, and under construction in India and in the US. Among others, we have announced 2 weeks ago the signing of what is going to be the second largest green ammonia plant in the world, 1.3 gigawatts in India with AM Green.
So I am Taia Kronborg. I'm the Chief Business Officer and partner of Lhyfe. Lhyfe is a hydrogen producer, green hydrogen producer and supplier. So we are an integrated company. We do everything from the development of the different plants, the construction, and then we do the operation afterwards. And of course, we supply our customers with hydrogen. We were created in 2019. We are 200 people present in 11 different countries. And what is a bit different with us is that it's not only PowerPoints and nice figures that you see. We actually have real plants operating today. We have had one plant operating for the past 3 years, and we are supplying customers with green hydrogen. We have now 4 plants operating today, and next year we will have another around 40 megawatt, which are today in construction. So, really green hydrogen production plant, and we are scaling up from these smaller plants that we are using to supply mobility and industrial customers to bigger industrial plants in the 100-ish megawatt size. We recently got a huge grant from the French IPCEI part of it to make a 100 megawatt plant supplying one of the larger customers in the north of France. Sorry. And we created this company to do something. We need to do it now. It's really essential for our kids and our grandkids that we decarbonize. So that is our mission, and we come to work every day to do that. Yes.
Hello, I'm Tudor Constantinescu. I'm Principal Advisor to the Director General for Energy, European Commission. So we are trying to create the regulatory, the legislative framework, which to enable all this production to take place in the most cost-effective way, and at the same time to secure decarbonization and to supply the off-takers with the products they need.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Alexander Liberov. So I spent 27 years in different industries within one company as a pretty boring career with a company called Siemens. Starting at really from very low position and accomplishing to top 20 executives within Siemens. And 6 months ago, I decided to join as a CEO SolydEra company. It's an Italian-based company which has been specializing in solid oxide for the last 20 years. That was very important for me, the level of maturity of technology, that the company has not started from scratch and has been quite a while in this business, having not just kind of technology on the paper, but in the field. Also, we have 90 million hours of operations of our stacks, which we have been producing in Italy. This is at the moment the biggest factory of fuel cells in Europe, having the 25 megawatt in the SOFC and 75 megawatt in electrolysis. And I think last but not least, very high efficiency of the technology, because with these stacks we can transform basically the steam 90% into hydrogen. That's important. So that was the reason why I fell in love with this company and basically got to SolydEra.
Hi everyone, I'm Philipp Lückerath, responsible for business development at Sunfire. Sunfire is a manufacturer, developer of electrolyzers, and we have two main products right now. One is a pressurized alkaline system, and the other is solid oxide electrolyzers. So you've actually, if you look carefully, seen us in the presentation as being part of some of the grants, funds that we've seen there, for the mainly for the solid electrolysis technology. So solid electrolysis, we're just bringing now to the commercialization. The largest system we have built is a 2.6 megawatt. We've seen it with the Neste refinery, and we've now developed our 10 megawatt module, which we're bringing to the market now. The second product is the pressurized alkaline system that is already commercial today. So we are deploying it in the largest projects that's really fully released and in the process of being built is a 100 megawatt project for RWE in Germany. So that's bringing it to the scale that we need now in the market. Sunfire, we're around 650 people, purely focused on electrolysis, mainly based in Germany, where we have our production sites, R&D sites, and also one site in Switzerland.
Thanks to all of you for this introduction. I think we see that we have a nice coverage of all technologies that we can discuss more in the framework of this panel. I would like to start to ask you a question about research and innovation. We've seen from Nikos' presentation that we are facing some challenges, and you know, and I know. And I know that we have some challenges for upscaling, deployment of those technologies. Do you think that research and innovation could help overcome those challenges? And are you, on your side, investing a lot on research and innovation to support your deployment? So maybe we can go in that direction to all of the electrolyzer manufacturers.
Clearly, there is still a need to invest a significant amount of money in research and innovation, and I'm just going to flag two examples. Component and supply chain. So material science is a key part of our development plan, with a lot of projects around the qualification of new material, new supplier, and this is a significant part of our research budget for the next few years. Another example where innovation is needed is probably on the intermittence. Managing stop and start is a big part of the value proposition of electrolyzer, acting as a buffer for grid. And we know that there is still a lot of progress to be made, both in terms of impact on deterioration of the performance or on understanding the overall economics of start and stop. Just to give you two examples, but of course we still need to spend significant money in R&I, which is one of our main costs in our fixed cost.
Some people would believe that alkaline is the past and the future will be other technologies. we strongly believe it is not the case. What we observe today is that for large-scale production of hydrogen, alkaline and specifically pressurized alkaline is today the preferred technology for many, many reasons. And we are convinced it will remain the same. Alkaline will remain ahead of the other technologies. This technology has been around for a century. It is a proven technology, but the room for further improvement of this technology is still very significant. So we at John Cockerill are investing still massively on R&I, on many topics. It's about, of course, energy efficiency. It's about reducing the use of expensive materials, about durability, about the scale of the equipment. So our R&I roadmap is very ambitious. Now, we should also see what is happening elsewhere in the world, and specifically in China. A lot is happening there. So if Europe wants to keep some champions in Europe, continuous support from the EU in terms of subsidies is key. We would like to thank the EU for their support until today, but it's very important that they continue supporting this industry in the same way as they have done it over the last few years.
Yes, so of course I agree with all of you that research and innovation and actions to be taken here are really key for us to have competitive systems in the end. Mention a few things. I completely agree with what Mr. McPhy said. So the system integration for us as a producer is really key. It's part of the underlying business plan that I have, meaning that the whole plant, so not only the electrolyzer, but the whole system actually needs to work in a very flexible manner. So it needs to be dynamic, it needs to do start and stop, it needs to do grid services, and all of this has an impact on your plant efficiency, on the degradation. Really enabling this to have a plant which is fully integrated into the energy system is key. And since we already have electrolyzers which are operating, we are already testing these kind of things. And I can promise you, we do have surprises. Okay, it isn't that easy to do 100 starts and stop on your plant. You have not only the electrolyzer, but you also have the compressor, and the compressor is not used to going up and down and starting and stopping all the time. So there is quite a lot of work to be done in this type of system integration. Second thing I think we want to highlight is going offshore. For Lhyfe, this has always been a part of the start. If we want to harvest the renewable energy potential that we have, we need to go offshore, and it's cheaper to it's really cheaper to transport gas than it is to transport electricity, so it's a good fit to actually produce your hydrogen offshore. And if you want to do that, you have a lot of different challenges. You have the whole offshore environment. You need to look into autonomous production. You need to go a bit off-grid, which is a very challenging aspect. You need to have a real integration with the renewable electricity. So the offshore for us has always been key, and we've had 2 projects already ongoing. First one, we had the first demonstrator in the world where we had hydrogen production offshore for around a year. And now we are building that out with our second demonstrator, which is the HOPE project, which was funded by the Clean Hydrogen Partnership and also funded by the Belgium federal state. And this is a 10 megawatt platform that we will put 1 kilometer from sea in the Ostende port. And the difference with this project is that we will be operating it for several years. And there will be a pipe with the hydrogen coming to shore, and we will sell the hydrogen. So this will be a real demonstration project where you can look at the full value chain in order to prepare us for something which we are pretty certain will come, because it's needed to go offshore in terms of hydrogen production. And I'll just say the last thing is, if we could work on bigger plants, how to standardize, how to really look into economies of scales, I think the whole, this whole hydrogen community would really benefit from that.
Yes, I'm not representing an electrolyzer manufacturer, but what I can tell you is that research and innovation is essential. We consider it always essential, and it's thanks to that we are still where we are today. But this has to continue and has to continue aligned with what the priorities, the policy priorities are shaping up for the periods to come and for the decades to come. And it's clear that hydrogen for us is a feedstock, is an energy carrier, can be a source of energy, can be a way of storage of energy, and all these dimensions, to exploit these dimensions, we need to be competitive with alternative solutions, to be able to complement alternative solutions, because there is no silver bullet in none of this area. So it's clear that for this reason, we need more cost effectiveness. We need also reliability, durability. We need, at the same time, to create the value chain in Europe, and the link between industrial energy policy will be stronger than ever for the next Commission. So all what is under the Net Zero Industry Act will be also taken over in the Clean Industrial Deal and emphasized and brought to another scale. So this dimension will be very important. And in this dimension, of course, the whole aspects of cost and efficiency will be important. In addition, should not be neglected, I'm glad I saw the presentation of Nikos earlier, the other pathways for hydrogen production. And the lower TRL ones should be also encouraged. We have to be able to stay ahead and to go on all aspects and on all chain of innovation and of producing renewable hydrogen in particular. But this will require not only imagination, will require also replacement of some critical materials, speaking titanium, speaking also platinum, but also looking at environmental challenges like the PFAS, and subsequently into the part of recycling, which in the whole deal, Green Deal concept, will play a more important role. So all these aspects will have gradually to be taken on board and paid more attention, while of course upscaling and all these things, seawater electrolysis, are things which of course we have to continue to do research, to continue to do innovation, larger scale demonstration, bring them to the market in order to be able to contribute to all the dimensions where hydrogen can contribute. Decarbonization, of course, first of all, but also competitiveness, but also gradually security of supply, playing as a substitute for other fossil fuels, which is going to replace in time.
I mean, from my perspective, of course, research and innovations is a driving force since we are talking about high-tech industry. One of the major topics or challenges as we are facing too, I think, in this industry is certainly CapEx, pretty high CapEx. And at the end of the day, so we are not in beauty context. The technology must be also economically feasible. It's not just green, but it must be economically feasible. And I mean, I can compare, of course, this kind of CapEx challenge as what we faced, I don't know, 50, 20 years ago with flat screens. We all remember that flat screen as was kind of luxury goods, and nobody was thinking probably 10, 15 years ago that one day as it would become a commodity as which would be affordable by everyone. I mean, we are, I think, at the same stage of the technology development. We are rather talking about laboratory plus demo stage. It's not industrial stage yet, or beginning of the industrial stage. And I think that here, exactly as in that area, research and innovations must help. One of the areas of the improvement is certainly a lifetime of stack. And for that, you need to invest into improvement of material, into improvement of design. You need to invest in research and development of design simplification, and as it was said, of the full supply chain optimization, simplification of design, maybe using more of the shelf solutions. I think these kind of innovations are absolutely important. As we at SolydEra, we spent quite significant amount of our overall budget on R&D. So I can tell you, by far, more than 50%. So it's around about 12, 13 million euro year over year that we spend into R&D. because it is, for me, the recipe as really to be successful going forward. So that's absolutely the crucial and viable for the industry to become an industrial solution and to overcome this challenge with CapEx.
Yeah, I think also from our side, research and innovation is at the core of what we do. I mean, Sunfire started 14 years ago as a company trying to sell e-fuels or develop e-fuels, and we saw the technology was not there, so we started developing the technology, which led to a series of these mainly SUSC R&D projects, and led us to where we are today. So research is really at the core of what we do, and it's a major share of our cost as well, and it's also going to be. And we're doing that for two products as well. I think the point I want to highlight here is the driver. Again, we talked about the cost, right, and which is one of the key hurdles right now to really get it off the scale next to the regulatory environment and really getting the offtake going. It's still, there's a cost gap, and this cost gap, of course, by one means we're going to get the cost down by scaling up our production. That's one for sure. But the other is really innovation and working on the next generation products, which is not going to be there tomorrow, but if it's going to be there in 3, 4, 5 years, then we need to do the work now. And we're also working on many ends. I totally agree with Raphaël that alkaline has so much more potential to improve as well. And as you see, the same, looking at lifetime, etc., there's a lot of things that's going to bring down the levelized cost of hydrogen, and not only by getting capex down, but really getting the product improved. As probably most of you know by now, it's been said many times, the levelized cost of hydrogen, it's mainly electricity cost, and that's all going into efficiency, lifetime, etc., etc. So. Yeah, this is where we're going to also stay competitive, which is the other theme we have here in the round. Competitive in the long run, right? Not just being there in the capex cost down game, but really leading the innovation. Yeah, so it's at the core. We're very thankful also for the support we get on the EU side there, and hope that this will continue.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Clearly, still a number of challenges for RNI. Our next question to our panelists is related to issues that we can't really control at JU level, but let's hear of your concerns on what you think are financial, legislative, certification measures that would help accelerate the commercial deployment of electrolyzers.
So there are clearly several factors that come into play. First being the regulatory framework, which is still too vague and too slow to be put into action. Just as an example, the RED III implementation is still way too slow and way too vague in many countries. There has to be a much more assertive view on quotas and ETS also, because at the end of the day, it's about the carrot, but it can be also about the stick sometimes to fast-track change of behaviors. And we know that it's not green hydrogen, which is too expensive. It's a gray, which is too cheap. And it's too cheap because it does not factor in the real price of carbon. And I think we all understand that. So there has to be an evolution in the regulatory framework. There has to be also an evolution in the way demand is supported. So we welcome the recent announcement of the hydrogen bank. I think it's moving in the right direction, but it should be faster. The contract for differences should be easier to put in place and should have a much broader scope in terms of industry. So again, financing through faster and more adequate mechanism, and a bit of simplicity on the regulatory framework.
Yes, of course we should accelerate. Now, we should also sometimes look back. And this industry should not lose face. I mean, people complain a lot in Europe that things are too complex and go too slowly. Now, if you look at what has happened over the last 4 years, globally, the installed capacity every year has been doubled. It's amazing, doubling capacity every year for the last 4 to 5 years. This industry is going already today through a very rapid growth and development. So I believe that we, as a sector, we have a duty to inform the public that it is coming, it is happening. Sometimes we read in the press that it's a dream, it will never happen. Probably the targets were sometimes over-ambitious. It's good to have ambitious targets, but what we have achieved collectively is already a success. And we should communicate more on this, on the success of the industry. Now, of course, we have to continue accelerating. And for us, the key is the demand side. What is missing for the project to take FID is an offtake contract. Is a firm off-taker signing a contract. Yes, it is expensive. And we should stop dreaming. Decarbonizing the planet will cost money. That's it. It is the price to pay to have a viable planet for the next generation. It will cost money. Someone will have to pay. Now, we have to bridge the gap between the production cost and the price. And for this, we believe that contract for difference or the mechanism of H2 Global are very good solutions, as well as imposing quotas. Imposing quotas on some industries to use a minimum percentage of green hydrogen and green molecules. And this percentage can increase over time. It's very simple. As Jean-Baptiste was saying, it's a bit of a stick, but if you start low enough and not too soon, the industry has time to get organized. And you start with the sectors where the premium for the green molecule will be the lowest. If you buy a car today, a car with green steel, it's less than 1% more expensive. So we should do it. So I believe that quota should be imposed on specific industries where the premium for this green molecule would be small, and you increase the quota over time.
Thank you. So I will say a little bit the same as the two others said, and try to give some of the examples. So we definitely need the RED III legislation to be put by each member state and by each sector to have really give some clarity and especially some visibility on the long term. Okay, so we are discussing with off-takers every day, okay, and we are really selling the hydrogen. So when you go to an off-taker and you say, you know, this is the RED III, 42% of your hydrogen should be green tomorrow, so let's go. And they're saying, I don't really know how to do this because I don't know what the mechanism to be put in place really. I don't know how the certification is going to work. I don't know the premium that we can get, and I don't know who is going to pay it. So they are saying, I'd love to, but right now I don't have a business case. And so we need to really make sure that the regulatory framework for the off-takers is in place and that they have visibility on it. If it's a long-term visibility, then all the investments will also come. And the contract for difference are definitely needed. It's the way we also made renewable energies a good business case. So putting it in place for the hydrogen is a really good fit. And we are welcoming that part. And the last thing is maybe a little bit more for smaller companies. Because there is always a difference between the smaller and the bigger companies, and the smaller companies have some challenges which are not there for the bigger companies. And I'll just take one example, and it's guarantees and warranties. You know, if you want to make green hydrogen, you have to buy now PPAs on the market, and PPAs, if you're a small company and you're not investment grade and you don't have a €1 billion balance sheet, well, you have to post warranties. Okay, and this is warranties for the PPAs, it's warranties for the off-takers, it's warranties for the EPC contract and for everything. And for a smaller company, it's costing quite a lot to do all of this. So if we could also have some help from the state guarantees and so on to level out the playing field between smaller players who are there and who are driving the industries and making a difference, and the bigger companies who do not have this problem at all and has lower cost, of capital and lower cost of putting warranties and so on in place.
Yeah, I guess I can say that we have witnessed sometimes that technologies have advanced faster than policies and regulations. But what we have done now, and in particular for hydrogen and storage, and so I think the regulatory framework we have in Europe is definitely the most comprehensive and the most complete from what we have around the world. I'm not saying that there are no things to be done more. I'm just comparing with the rest of the world. And we have the most comprehensive regulatory framework, just still small pieces to finalize, including now the delegated act on low carbon, but doesn't regard maybe so much now your concerns. But we will do it. We'll try to finalize even this year. So things are there. Very much focus will have to be indeed on implementation and on member states transposing this. We are in a process of receiving the national energy climate plans, where we'll have to see also what the plans on hydrogen are. And these are very, very important. And at the same time, to try to, on one hand, implement the regulations we have, and the other side, to be careful and to see where adjustments may eventually be required in this process. Financing it will continue to be important. That's why we have the Hydrogen Bank. With the first auction, we had quite good results, I dare to say. It will be now in December, the second auction, even with more money. We try to put a pilot mechanism in place, at least with the transparency and identifying producers and off-takers, also for what it refers to import of renewable hydrogen in Europe, so to develop this pillar as well. At the same time, we'll have to look at the sectors where can have the biggest impact. I agree. For a car, for example, if we speak about steel, there's an impact in the price of the car is rather limited. Maybe it's a good way to marketing and to see that it's possible to upscale. On the other hand, we have objectives related to the current use of hydrogen in different sectors, refining and fertilizers and so on, where to try to replace, and in parallel to move to the new areas like steel, and we have the big plants in Sweden, but not only, where we can find the new markets and enable hydrogen to start to play a bigger role and upscale into these directions. Now, all this will have now to enter into a phase of implementation very much, with support as much as support possible from the public funds, but also with de-risking mechanism and compensation based on market mechanisms, including contract for difference gradually and so on, which to enable the market to develop and not to rely exclusively on subsidies, because otherwise it's not a market at the end of the day. So we have clearly to make it operational. But I would be rather positive on what we have in terms of regulatory framework, which needs indeed now to be properly implemented, and for which we stay next to all the stakeholders to support a good understanding, but also next to member states to support transposition and also action and projects in this respect, sometimes on projects which can help upscaling because they are projects of common interest, for example, or even the important project of common European interest, which cover more of the value chains in Europe. Thank you.
I think it was a lot of good points addressed already. I have basically the 4 points to address. Number one is harmonization of the system as far as it's possible, because coming from transportation industry, I know how painful it is when every time you have to sell train to a different region, you have sometimes different regulations, etc. So if we can get as much as possible harmonized system and regulatory environment, it would help enormously. The second point is a demo. I already was talking about kind of CapEx challenges and a bit catch-22 situation we are in at the moment, getting from laboratory into demo and from demo into industrial phase. I think that it would be really great to get some support for demonstration projects, because we are not going to go from 0 to hero immediately. So there will be most of the time the projects from 10 to 20 megawatt really to test the technology. So I'm more talking about solid oxide at the moment. The point number 3 is, of course, offtake, long-term offtake agreements. I mean, we see at the moment certain discrepancy between a lot of dynamics on OEM side, a lot of investments, new factories being built, etc. And on the other hand, I think that we see quite delay on off-taker side. If we can get some incentives, incentivize these long-term off-take agreements, it would help a lot. And I think the 4th point is about supporting not only kind of building construction, meaning the building new factories, but also I think an extension in the existing factories, in new production lines, because with that, as we would invest European Union money not only in concrete, into new factories and new buildings, but more into technology. I think that that's also important to consider, because I saw in many fundraising preconditions, you need to build a new factory. But sometimes the factory is already existing. Maybe it's better to invest this money in the production line and to avoid, the spending another money as done for building concrete and the buildings. Thank you.
Yeah, from our side, I think on the financial support, a lot has been said already. The Hydrogen Bank, I think, is a good instrument now. We've learned from the first round. We're probably going to learn in the second round as well. But it's an instrument that works. And given that decarbonization is going to cost money and there will be a cost gap, at least for the next 10 years, we need a way to finance this for commercial projects at scale. And that's what the PV industry has been doing since 20 years, right? So we just need a stable instrument that project developers can plan with. I think that's the beauty of the IRA in the US, that it's very easy in the project planning. And yeah, on the financing side, that would be great. Hydrogen Bank, get the money in there for the next years and make it a stable instrument that we can have in the long run. On the legislative side, we now have a very complex comprehensive and complex in Europe, which we just need to work with. Key is here that we keep it stable now, so people can plan with that. We're also in support of quotas. The 42%, that's exactly the challenge that RED 3 now has, right? How do you translate that into national law? What does it mean for each company? That's the challenge. Make that simpler. The car example is a good example. Refineries is a good example. They just have negligible cost to the end customer. If they would just use 10% of the hydrogen, would need to be green, right? And there are many more examples in the public procurement sector, procuring green steel, concrete. You can make it, very concrete measures, having quotas to get the industry starting. And then on the certification and sort of also legislative side, having a joint European approach to that. For example, under the Renewable Energy Directive, it will be very important that, under sort of guarantees of origin scheme, these guarantees can be traded within Europe, so that a project in Portugal can sell their guarantees to a refinery in Poland. That would really bring scale to the market and not have basically each country doing their own legislation. So I think that's also very important, if we have that approach now on an EU level, that we make it at least as coherent as possible across the whole of Europe.
Thanks to all of you. I think it's really helpful to see your point of view. So we are running a little bit out of time. Before giving the floor to the audience, I would like to ask you a very quick question. We've seen from Nico's presentation that there is an international competition on electrolyzers. China is leading with the manufacturing capacity and installation. We have on the US the IRA mechanism, which is also supporting quite a lot. Do you see those as a risk for Europe?
So very quickly, I think it's clearly a risk for Europe, and we need to keep a level play field in competition. This is why the recent announcement on the minimum threshold of value add that the Bank of Hydrogen has announced recently was extremely positive, because we need to make sure we compare apple to apple and protect our innovation, and also benefit from the investment made by European countries, namely through the IPCI, for instance.
So when we think about what should be the response of Europe to this, the first question to ask ourselves is, what about reciprocity? How are European companies welcome treated in these continents? And let's Europe not be naive about it. Now, about the Chinese, yes, European players can compete, are able to compete. But as Jean-Baptiste was saying, we need a level playing field. The reality is that the largest market today is in China. This is providing volume to the Chinese OEM. The supply chain are larger, more established and cheaper in China, and the sector is subsidized at all levels. So that's what it is. If we don't act, we can just look at the PV industry, the batteries industry, the wind industry. The same will happen to this industry. It's a political decision for Europe. Do we want to act? Yes or no?
So, as a hydrogen producer, we agree it's a huge risk for Europe, and we are happy to see that Europe is putting things in place. Lhyfe is really agnostic with electrolyzers, so we are buying different technologies, different suppliers, and so on. And today we need to have a lot of different in order to test and to figure out what is going to happen with the electrolyzer market in the coming years. So really wanting to see a European electrolyzer sector growing and having capacities in Europe. I also want to point out that we have some other outside competition. For example, you mentioned the IRA, for example, from US. And as a producer, when you can have heavily subsidized hydrogen derivatives, ammonia, methanol, SAF, or even hydrogen, that can be imported to Europe and have the same label, that is also another kind of a competition that we are seeing, and which is today not really well defined and cannot in the current regulations be stopped. So we have a lot of competition coming from outside with import of hydrogen and other derivatives. And I think it's important for Europe as well to say we actually want to be producing in Europe. We want to have this security of supply as well, and making sure that the projects we develop in Europe are sustainable and find a business case.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's a very important point. And it's a joint responsibility, I think. It's a responsibility for governments, for Commission, but also for industry and for the stakeholders. Allow me to say, we have invested over the years a lot in the PVs. And then we had companies who sold the business turnkey to the Chinese, made a lot of money in short term, and they were financed with European money to set up and from start-uppers to become companies. And then they said, okay, we make quick money and gave everything to China. I think we should not repeat this mistake. There is also kind of social and European responsibility, especially when you are funded with European money. I'm sorry. This is one aspect. Then we have created in Europe, we heard from everywhere, including from the IEA, the biggest challenge is the demand creation. We are the only region in the world who really put a binding target for renewable hydrogen in industry. Of course, now we have to see member states how it materializes, and also on transport. We are going to support them in achieving this objective. But of course, according to some rules, and because we don't want to distort the market, we don't want to call renewable hydrogen something which is not renewable hydrogen, or to misuse resources, and where it's more efficient, according to a system integration approach, to use direct electricity. Of course, use direct electricity, but there are so many other areas where you need the molecules, and where hydrogen makes sense. But when we do this, we subsidize our consumers. On the other hand, other countries in this world, which some were mentioned here, are supporting their producers. They are supporting their producers, which they will find also consumers on our side sponsored to buy those products. I don't think this is completely fair in this perspective. So we have to take care of this as well. And on the other hand, I think the users have to understand and to collectively agree that if we have a system of recognition, of certification, of rules and regulations, these have to be properly observed and applied in order to have, as much as possible, a level playing field, and also leading, at the end of the day, to the objectives of decarbonization at the global level. Because otherwise, if hydrogen will not prove that contributes to this as well, I think gradually the interest for it may decrease. So all these elements, I think, have to be looked, and each one has to take its own part of actor, its part of responsibility into it, and of course on our side, try to make things moving as smooth as possible and to encourage, also based on the Net Zero Industry Act. You know, we have this manufacturing objective in Europe, and we have also an objective of producing technologies for the global market, because indeed it's a global market which is being developed and where Europe should be able to compete as well.
Do I see a risk? Yes, I do. I spent 4 years in China, and I know exactly, how quick they are in implementation execution. At a certain extent, much better than us Europeans, as we must admit it. As what is the recipe to compete? I think research and innovations. I mean, to be honest with you, you cannot protect yourself either with any legal contracts, etc., unless you are always staying in innovation leadership. And I think this is really to be innovative in technology, to be always better. We are talking about high-tech again as not commodity. I think this is one of the recipes. Another one is, of course, political support of European Union. I mean, this is what I said before in these regulatory, legal environments. Yes, so we need to protect our own home produced technologies here in Europe. We see that politics and business, they are now, by now we see that's basically one kind of conglomerate. You cannot divide completely. And therefore it is absolutely important really support of European companies by European governments. Absolutely. The same way as the Chinese do with their own home suppliers.
Yeah, do we see a risk? Yes. Are we afraid to compete on a level playing field? No. So I think it's the technological leadership that we need to keep. We European OEMs do build the best electrolyzers in the world. So the question is, what are we going to do with that? And there's a huge chance of building a clean tech industry around producing electrolyzers. And all the supply chain that would come there. So that's talking also about jobs in the long run. So it's a question, what do we want from a political perspective for Europe? And we see a huge chance there. The risk is that we, not on the technological side that we're leading, the risk is really, can we scale up the same pace as China does? And basically they've already done that. They've scaled up faster, so that's why they can now push cheap electrolyzers to the market. And we just need to make sure at this phase where we have a nascent industry, I mean, we're just building the first 100 megawatt projects here, where it's also very difficult to really compete apple to apples in a project like OEM versus OEM, China versus Europe. It's very difficult, and there we should really make sure that if we're putting also taxpayers' money to fund those projects to get off the ground, that we at least using European technologies in that nascent stage. And that's what the Hydrogen Bank has decided now. We're very happy about that. But also in the long run, again, we're not afraid to compete. We invest a lot of in research innovation. That's what we talked about.
That is great. Thank you very much. We are seeing some huge zeros on these screens, meaning our time is up. However, I think it would be fine if we could have one question. Someone from the audience would like to ask a question to our panelists. Is there a question there? Yes?
I must say sorry because I understand what you said about the risk to Chinese, but we want to ask questions what do you think is the potential parking schedules in China? Even you think we are risk to the European supply chains, but how to deal with, to compete with Chinese companies and how to get the marketing in China? You know, in last month, China's government said we also release the hydrogen from the chemical gas to the power gas. So now I think when we said the risk, but we also need to think about China's marketing now is growing so fast than it's just globally. How to deal with it, risk and same as meat there. The risk is the same things, but the meat also, the huge market also in China now. How to deal with that?
Right. I take this more as a statement than a question. I wonder if anyone would like to comment on this.
I mean, I can comment on that. I mean, again, since I have some experience in China, I think in China you must be Chinese in a way, as a localized, not localized. As you need to have a local partner, as everywhere in the world right now. I think, for me, I fully agree with you. It might be a risk, but at the same time, an opportunity. I think the partnering up with strategic partner in China must be a way to deal with that.
Excellent. So I would like once more to thank our panelists and maybe ask for a round of applause.